are a truly portfolio career person, right? How do you build that T function muscle within an organization?
You're asking me all the profound questions, which is fantastic. My ambition, our ambition for NatWest in India is to build enterprise leaders. At all levels of leaders at NatWest, my ask is, please build mastery of craft, work across the different parts of the business. By doing that and developing that breadth, you're going to get more prepared for as the next opportunities come through.
But how do you create the change? How are you building that muscle within NatWest India?
As the chief roadblock remover, as I often call myself,
Love it.
Our role as leaders is frankly to sometimes help by asking questions. What's the so what for the customer?
Absolutely love it. We've got that.
Awesome.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of GCCs Unfiltered. I'm your host Nitika Goel, CMO and Managing Partner at Zenove. Today's conversation is about what it really takes to lead at scale, when the hard part is no longer about growth, but judgment. I'm joined by Ruchika Panesar, the country head of NatWest India and the Chief Digital and Information Officer for the group function at the NatWest Group. NatWest has had over 100-year relationship with the country, and its India GCC, it is one of the most mature and scaled banking GCCs. And Ruchika has joined the group just 1.5 years ago, stepping into an organization that has already got deep talent, credibility, and even institutional memory. At this point, leadership is no longer about what to build from scratch. It's deciding what to change, what to project, and where presence really matters. And none of that works unless trust comes first. So let me start there. Welcome to this episode. I know you're dressed in NatWest colors. You're living the brand every single day.
Totally.
You know it. I think one thing that really struck me is this organization, as I said, has institutional memory. You've inherited this role just 1.5 years ago. What's been hard? What's been easy? What's been the juice with all of this?
Oh, thank you for the question, first of all, and thank you for having me.
Lovely.
And coming to our office and doing this, absolutely living the purple every day. You made me sound very youthful and, newbie, as you said, year and a half at NatWest. And I'm really privileged to join this phenomenal organization. I've loved every bit. The hard parts, the not so hard parts, all of it. I think, when you join any new organization or even new roles, approaching it as if you have an empty cup and really pouring in and seeking to understand before you seek to be understood has been really important, right? Because absolutely, as you say, yes, I have the experience. I brought in, different facets of industry and tech background, etc. But the organization has a phenomenal foundation. We have had the reputation internally, externally for being excellent at what we do, right? Mm-hmm. Having great talent, delivering phenomenal results for the group. And this chapter has been about, all right, how do we look at now the next 10, 20 years and think about how we take something that is superbly good to great? And really taking that delivery excellence to becoming that next generation, future fit, innovation and capability powerhouse, as I often say. And so I'd say, it has been a combination of many things. It's been about learning, first of all. What do we do? Getting deeply entrenched in our purpose, getting deeply entrenched in understanding our customers, what matters to our customers, and having the customer back and developing that customer back myself, understanding where we have strengths that we can build on, and understanding where there may be opportunities to do things differently because it may have been sort of organically set up in a way. And really, that's what it's been about. But that, especially when you come with, your own experiences, when you come in, can be hard unless you're intentional about it. And so, really taking that first 90 days really intentionally, thinking about where I wanted to spend my time, being really intentional about then the next 3 months and the next 3 months and how I wanted to, organize, like I said, how I spend my time, what I spend learning, what I spend acting on, what are the quick wins that we want to get to has been really important. And then, as you said, of course, the organization has its own muscle and its own legacy, and a very beautiful one at that. And so, like I said, meeting people halfway
is so important.
Important. And there are times that you meet halfway, and there are times that you go all the way and bring the organization with you by showing what that good to great could look like, by really talking about openly what that next chapter and the vision of that could look like, and inspiring, of course, the organization to get to that same momentum, and then sometimes changing your mind and adjusting as you go.
That is, I think, really fantastic, Ruchika. And I'm going to deep dive into this a little bit more, right? If you had to give advice to a new leader who's coming in to set up shop, what should they be ruthlessly thinking of as part of that 30, 90-day plan, or even like a 3-month plan, as they go on to build their organizations?
Approach it with a glass empty. Empty your cup before you come and join a new organization. Listen, learn, listen intently. Listen for what is real versus what people may think they want to tell you or you want to hear. And I think as a leader, being able to differentiate between that goes a long way. As well as don't lose the freshness that you come in with. The first 30 days and your observations as a new leader, write them down. Go back to them to compare and contrast. There will be several things that might change in your observations as you deepen them. And there may be a few things that the freshness in the first 30 days and what you have observed still holds true. But don't lose that freshness, because I think you need both. You need
structure and
balance.
intuition.
Yeah, you need absolutely the structure and
the intuition.
You
come with.
Absolutely, because you see it in the first 30 days of what that charter might look like.
So I'm going to come back again and talk a little bit more about that. One thing, when you started doing this, what really mattered most? Changing structures, changing incentives, or changing beliefs and behaviors?
I don't think it's about structures. I will humbly say that I think structures are overrated.
Oh, then when we get down to the systems bit, I'm going to question you on that.
It's structures in a certain way, right, are sometimes overrated and sometimes the easier parts to fix, right? It's the beliefs. It's the ambition. It's raising the bar on the ambition and making sure that there's the collective belief that we can get there. I think that is by far, I would say, the most important out of all of the three that you mentioned.
And how do you build belief?
Well, one, building the belief in people's own capabilities. As I said, you've inherited a strong foundation and excellence. And also leading with that and reminding people of all the phenomenal things they've done, and why they have the right to win. They already have phenomenal credibility, and you're trying to build from there. So one, what's our right to win? Yeah? And reminding us of that. And then the proof points that exist, both outside-in proof points, inside-out proof points. And I will say, very importantly, bringing everyone along on the journey is really important. making sure that people feel like their voice is in it. Yeah, it isn't about the leader. It is not Ruchika's thing. It is everyone's ambition. It is everyone's plan, and they can see how they've fed to it, and they can see how the enterprise ambition or the franchises that they serve and those ambitions are being fulfilled and accelerated. I think that's what drives real sort of collaborative momentum, because that's what you need.
So I think that's really lovely. I'm going to ask, does it also change? Because you folks are a mega GCC, you have 18,000 plus employees, and building belief and ambition with that scale, is there like a playbook that you have to communicate it frequently, or you're just allowing for transparency to lead that way?
I think it's a combination of a lot of different things, right? You have to create listening posts and make sure that you're connected to the teams, you're sitting down, you're in the work, and you understand the work and the OKRs that every single part of the organization is trying to get to at a very deep level. And then you have to open the door for very active dialogue, because it isn't always, it can't be just top down, right?
Absolutely.
It has to be collaborative. It has to be inclusive. As I said, people have to feel like their voice is in it, and that happens when you create those avenues and listening posts and real avenues for exchange of ideas, whether it's through formal channels or informal channels, whatever that might be. But I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all, is what I'd say, yeah.
Fantastic, loved it. The other thing I want to talk about is, I think we discussed this just off camera, is the fact that while we are a GCC in the Indian construct, you're a part of a global organization embedded deeply thinking of what your global CXO priorities are, what your customer priorities are, and I think you alluded to it earlier in this conversation. How are you building systems thinking? Because oftentimes in systems thinking, because people are focusing on their tasks, they reach a local maxima, but they seem to be pushing the bottleneck elsewhere because there's a lack of understanding at a global scale. How are you building that muscle in within NatWest India?
I think connecting a colleague base to the purpose. We are a bank that turns possibility into progress. Our ambition is to be customer back. We serve, a range of customers in commercial, institutional, wealth management, retail, in all their banking needs. And to do that, you also have to build a deep level of customer appreciation and people being able to truly develop deep understanding of what are the customer needs and wants. What's the so what for the customer? It can't be a one and done. One of the things that I did very early on is to spend time with each of our businesses, sit down with the people who actually, whether it's our frontline colleagues or back office colleagues or our technologists who are building capabilities in software, and really go deep within it to understand what are we doing. And our role as leaders is frankly to sometimes help by asking questions.
Absolutely.
Right? And both because you're learning through it, but also because you're being the catalyst to help sharpen that thinking around the customer back, around how we're really applying cutting edge tech. How would you do this differently today than you did it 2 years ago? What is available, what is true today from what systems and capabilities and tech is available to me today versus what was available to me 2 years ago is different. And you want to have that conscious dialogue on an ongoing basis to build that systems thinking, but then also embed it in the programmatic things that you're doing, whether it's learning and development or it's how you build it in recognizing great talent, And I'll go back to your comment about T-shaped thinking. And as you said, I talk about that quite a bit. If you just put that aside, whether it's T-shaped or now said like W-shaped or, there's ultimately the point of this is that in the future and even today, we will need to be multifaceted and we will need to have both deep expertise in areas of strength and potentially multiple areas of strength in the future, as well as that ability to lead horizontally across the enterprise. So enterprise first then means that I am going to first think about if I had to do this once and I had to do this for the enterprise, would I really design my system differently? Versus if I only thought about my business line and what needs to be true for me to deliver this, would I design it differently? How do I really think about whether I'm adding duplication or driving reusability? And how am I thinking again of the customer first? Because ultimately, when you think customer first, then you're not thinking, well, it's this part of the business or that part of the business, and really taking that customer-centric view.
No, I think that's a beautiful answer, but I'm also going to add more variables to this, Ruchika, because why not? You're in a complex business environment. On one side, it's very, very profound of what you said is understanding customer first. But as Ford famously said, sometimes the customers don't know what they want. And the world is also changing very, very quickly. You have the construct of hyper-personalization. You have neobanks coming in. Today, you have competitors in like the most abstract things like Amazon Pay. You'll have a different banking systems. It's all changing so dynamically. So how do you also create that economic thinking mindset where the system is not just restricted to the customer of today, but the possibility of the customer of tomorrow? So how do you create innovation in a rapidly changing environment?
There's a couple of parts to that question. So I'll take the second part first, which is innovation in a regulated environment. And I'd say that there's three things. You have to make it purpose-led. You have to anchor innovation back into what is the purpose, what is the strategy, what do we really want to do. The second is customer back, which I've talked about. It has to be about the customer experience at the end of the day. Now that the definition of customer is existing customers, of course, and also customers that we may want to. I'll come back to your first question, which is really about personalization and about where customer behavior is going, right? It's all of our guess because customer ambition, all of our behaviors and all of our ambitions are changing pretty rapidly. It is going to be very much about meeting the customer where they are in the moment that matters to them.
Absolutely.
And so therefore, it is not just about what you're pushing, but also how you're embedding the feedback loop back. And that's, again, is systems thinking.
Absolutely.
Is that when you think about digital experiences, let's just pick that. If you think about digital experiences through your channels, you're not just like presenting the best experiences and personalizing them as you go through the right systems that can allow for that rich insight that drives personalized experience in channel or orchestrating it appropriately. But you also are embedding then back the measurements and the analytics of what's working and what's not working and what works for you versus what doesn't work for me, which channel. You check your email at, Saturday morning at 7 a.m.
Absolutely.
I'm more a 5 a.m. gal, whatever that might be. And making sure, as I said, on a serious note, being able to tailor that to segments of near one or micro segments and therefore hyper-personalized does require that level of systems thinking that then also gives you the ability to change and pivot based on customer feedback, right? No longer are we in long 3-year, 5-year strategy cycles.
Yeah.
Therefore, what we can do is to build our systems and build our organizations to be nimble, to be agile, right, in real ways, and do so at pace, that you're able to adjust and you're able to navigate in the changing needs of the customer as you go.
So I think you talked about some very interesting, very practical, very anchored in reality things, right? How do you teach that to people? It's a hard one, right? It's not something that, and obviously it's something that we all learn and do, but how do you start teaching that to people? And the other side that I know it's an extended question, will our customers trust technology more or will they trust people in the long run, right? That's the question even I ask myself in debate sometimes, because if you think about it, today if I see something on GPT versus my colleague says something, you'll think, okay, GPT has much more information to support it. Is it something that any AI tool, right? I'm not just saying GPT, but is it going to be trusting technology or people? And, how do you create that balance?
Again, two questions there.
I think I'm a two-question.
Two-question gal. You asked me about how you would teach something like this, right? And I think, first off, there's no replacement for hands-on learning.
Absolutely.
I think you can do a lot of the classroom, you can do more personalized coaching, all of that, which we programmatically absolutely do. Our Learning Academy does a lot of that, including programs on some of what we're talking about. But you also have to allow for then the practical hands-on learning. And I would say balance the talent base in building some of those skill sets within the deep domain capability that you already have in the organization through the tenure, through the rich sort of organic learning that individuals have gone through. And then also sprinkle in strategic external hires who have the lived experience of doing that in other organizations potentially, and bring that together. And the balance and the diversity of that experience, I think, is what truly gets to that next level of learning.
Got it. But the other thing that I actually want to ask, is India more poised to really do the systems thinking? Because we have a microcosm of every single team. Are we sitting on a veritable gold mine that we just don't know? Because we have finance, we have HR, we have proxies for customer, we have R&D, we have IT, we have the whole hog. So are we sitting on a gold mine that we are just not using enough?
It's an interesting one. I think that's the magic, is to use that gold mine. Yeah, as you said, what I was earlier alluding to is the foundation of phenomenal delivery excellence and people who truly understand the customer behavior, people who truly understand the systems of the past, and now taking that same talent base to allow for that future thinking and driving innovation has to happen. That is the unlock, frankly, and it is going from scale to actually creating those deeper outcomes and values that are grounded in enterprise outcomes. That's what the work is, and it's doable. I do think that it is very much doable. I think our talent India has phenomenal talent. I think we have great systems thinkers. I think we have great technologists within our organization and in the industry broadly in the country. And we have to take that and allow for that big thinking and that big picture thinking and that purpose-led thinking, and giving a really smart and deep people who understand this really well, and giving them the right customer problems to solve, and bringing that together is what's going to drive the next chapter.
I actually love the fact you said ask the right questions, and sometimes you're saying just make them to the right problems, right? It's as simple as that.
I do think that sometimes, and you haven't asked me this question, but given that I've worked in different parts of the world and have had the opportunity to work in HQ versus in India, one of my observations of my alma mater is that it's not the expertise, or it's not the skill sets that sometimes are in the way. It's more the connectedness to what's the biggest priority, what's the customer need, and grounding that in that purpose and that enterprise thinking. That is the most important thing, a gap to fulfill, if anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I love that. You are a truly portfolio career person, right? You have played different roles, worn different hats, lived in different geographies, taken on tasks of different magnitudes. How do you build that T function muscle within an organization? And I know this is a two-part question since I go down the path of two. Terrible twos for me. But one thing is the way GCCs have evolved, and Zinnov, we've been tracking it for many, many years, right? And one of the things we have seen is they have grown from being technical experts as the organizations have grown. They wanted to get generalist roles, start connecting the dots, and they have gone on to become just generalists, right? Now we're saying, listen, come back to being your T's and your W's and things like that. How do you balance the fact that you need to have dot connection, but you still need to have functional capability? And how do you do it with senior leaders who have played generalists for so long?
Good question. I'd say, starting again at the first part of the question, my career and the types of roles that I've played, some of those moves were organic and some of those moves were intentional. I'd say a few that were intentional were the desire to go from really building tech to going and doing a strategy role for a while and, helping shape the technology strategy for my erstwhile organization for a period of time. That, I would say, was an intentional move. And then another one was to go from physical channels and scaled platforms to now getting intentionally into digital experiences over the last decade-ish of my career. That was, again, built the breadth, if I may. So how do I translate that back to building talent in an organization is exactly that, which is, as you think about talent and you think about building the best enterprise leaders of the future, my ambition, our ambition for NatWest in India is to build enterprise leaders. And how do you do that is by now encouraging colleagues to take on those lateral roles or going and spending time in different parts of the business so that they are developing a well-rounded understanding both of our business but also the respective tech, right? To give you an example, I've done full stack engineering, I've done data engineering, I've done contact center, greenfield sort of infrastructure engineering, spent a lot of time in AI and Gen AI and channel development. And every time I made the switch, there was a lot of learning and absorbing. And having the humility to then say, I don't know what I don't know, please teach me, I think also helps to ground individuals in depth and reality. And I'd say that I absolutely encourage that type of talent development in the organization where at all levels of leaders at NatWest, my ask is, please build mastery of craft, get really, really good at what you do and what you drive and are accountable for, because that's your strength, that's what you lead with. And that helps you, drive those meaningful outcomes. But then now go and work across the different parts of the business because you're learning different things about, how trading businesses work or how, home borrowing systems work or, so by doing that and developing that breadth, you're going to get more prepared for as the next opportunities come through. Every senior role being really an enterprise role is really important. So for us, it is absolutely true. For us at NatWest, every senior role in India is equivalent to any senior role in the UK. If you are a senior leader, then you have both. You have accountability of something that is an enterprise outcome or a franchise outcome that you get to lead and drive. And then you may have some broader responsibilities also, in addition to that deep functional expertise that is required. That is the way that we are shaping the leaders of the future. It is, we no longer actually have roles that are purely India roles or purely oversight roles. But they don't exist. There's no other way.
Correct.
To be completely candid.
Yeah, but how do you create the change? I mean, how do you make people realize? I mean, a generalist, it's very hard to shift the mindset, right? Both ways. I mean, they've taken multiple years to sort of slip into this role, and now you have few years to slip back into this T role. So how do you make that change?
I think as the chief roadblock remover, as I often call myself,
Love it.
I find myself asking, questions, and going into level 1, level 2, level 3 level questions. And it is, frankly, my expectation, both of myself and leaders in our organization, that it is an expectation that that's what depth looks like, is the ability to answer deep questions and the ability to answer the simplest questions, because sometimes the simplest questions can be the hardest, right?
Yeah.
But if you know your stuff, you will be able to answer those very simplistic questions.
Absolutely love it. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is, like, what skills, I would love to say a decade from now, but who knows where this decade is going. But what skills do you think are going to become non-negotiable for leaders, technologists within GCCs in the next few years?
Where AI is going and agentic capabilities are going, there's a lot of those things that one can learn and apply and use technology to do. Judgment and human judgment is going to be obviously very, very needed. It's the ability to stitch those, those solutions with the right problems, which you were calling matchmaking. But frankly, it's about the focus. It's focusing on the right customer problems. It's focusing on the right enterprise problems, and that judgment is going to be number one. I think really continue to be very important. Learning agility, which I often talk about, is going to be extremely important. Is because it's changing so rapidly. And with every change, you now have a phenomenal opportunity to learn, and it's a level playing field. Also, something I often talk about is it's a level playing field. So no longer is there, someone has a advantage versus someone else is a disadvantage, but it's the agility with which you're picking up. And then the human connection and humility never goes out of relevance, does it, right?
I love it. I think you and I speak the same language. So, Ruchika, I'm like completely 100% vibing with you, vibe coding. Yeah. But a thing that I also wanted to talk about is, you talk about it really well, and I think you are the playbook. You're the embodiment of that playbook. And I'll tell our audience why, right? You've been here only for a year and a half. You have managed to build connections. You are on the NASSCOM Executive Council. You have managed to inherit an incredibly large team and make it grow and thrive. You also have a interesting problem, which I think is very different, but you've also seem to have solved for that. You've come from an American headquartered company to a British headquartered company. It's a very different culture even in that side, but you seem to have built a learning muscle that seems to embody all of this very quickly. So what is your secret sauce playbook? And I want specifics, because I think all of us, myself included, can learn from this.
Well, one, yes, you're right, American headquartered, but a very global organization.
Correct.
Right? I've had the opportunity from, early childhood, growing up in a country called Kuwait, and going to sort of an embassy school with multicultural, children from different backgrounds. And then having lived and worked in different parts of the world, even during my the career journey that I've had, I've often led teams that have been in different parts of the world. Like I've led teams that live in Australia and Japan and Philippines and India and the US and the UK. And so I've actually, frankly, never looked at it that way. I've looked at it as people are people.
Just figure them out.
And frankly, we have more in common than we have differences. At the heart of it, human motivation is grounded in very similar things. And so my way to look at it is, how may I be of service to you? And I found myself through the very early part of even my time at NatWest asking that question, especially in many one-on-one interactions or small group interactions, to say, how may I serve you? How may I make your life simpler? And at the heart of it, the answers are not very different.
Which is, I think, what you said, a complex problem with the simplest solution. Yeah. Just break it down to first principles.
There you go.
Human connection, right? I now have to ask you a bunch of rapid fire questions, because a lot of what you've been shaped is also some things that have happened professionally and personally as well, right? What is one quiet leadership skill that you believe is underestimated?
Silence.
Wow, okay. How do leaders do less thinking and more designing?
Making the white space. You have to make the time. You have to be very disciplined about making the time to not just be the victim of your diary, but make those chunks of time that can actually lead to that experimentation. It is not very rapid, but just over the weekend, I was experimenting with 3 different vibe coding platforms to just sense check which one I think is, fit for what purpose. So you have to keep yourself hands-on and do that and make the time for it.
So actually, my next question is an extension of that. How have you used AI, and what is the most fun thing you have done with it for your personal life and the most fun thing you've done with it on a work front?
My daughter and I are actually working on a project together where Arya's magical garden is going to be like an animated little blurb that we're putting together. So that's on the fun side or the family side, I'd say. And at work, one of the fun things that I've done in the past is really leverage it for marketing, copyrights, subject lines, really briefs, creative process, which I think, some of the models are fantastic at.
If you were not in banking or a country head, what would your alternative career be?
Ooh, I think I would be in academics.
Ooh, fun. I think, you would be a great teacher. You have something which is like, you're very patient, very structured. I think you check all the boxes. You also are a fearless learner, obviously, given the fact that you're vibe coding for entertainment on the weekend as a center head. Love it, love it, love it. What is your fearless learning philosophy?
I come from the Sikh tradition, and there is you grow up hearing Nirpo, Nirvair, the fearless, no enemy. So you sort of like, that's very core to me.
Correct. If you had an autobiography to write about yourself, what would the title of that book be?
And She Was Born Again.
Oh, love it. Great. Again, thank you again, Ruchika, for your time. It has been an absolute pleasure. I've learned so many things.
Thank you.
My personal favorite was ask the right questions, right? Level 1 questions, 2 questions, 3 questions. Why? So what? What next? Those are such simple but important questions. And I think you also talked about something beautiful and profound, is sometimes the most complex answers need the simplest responses. So anybody who can answer tough questions simply, deep questions thoughtfully, is somebody that you're going to be looking for in terms of skill. I think NatWest India is in great, great hands. I think the ecosystem continues to look forward to having leaders like yourself to shine the way. And the GCC journey is just beginning. We are still clocking 1,900 plus GCCs. Those numbers will change rapidly as we know it. And I think we need a lot more ecosystem builders like yourself. So more power to you, upwards and onwards. And it's just been an absolute pleasure with this conversation.
Thank you. Absolutely loved it myself.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Zinnov Podcast. You've been listening to our new series, GCCs Unfiltered. Stay tuned for more such interesting episodes. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts from. To know more about Zinnov, visit our website, www.zinnov.com, or drop us a note at info@zinnov.com.